Who are the best running backs to target in rounds 2 and 3 of your fantasy football draft this year? That's the first question that we've got, and that is what we're going to start with today. Troy, welcome back. Love having you on the show again. Why don't you start us off here with a question from Bradley Turns? He is saying, looking to go running back at the 2-3 turn, how do you rank the following? We'll get into that in a second, but who are some guys that you are targeting at that 2-3 turn?
Well, it's the first guy to hate, but it's Mixon, right? So at the 2-3 turn, Mixon's value is fair, right? I definitely have some PTSD, just be having Mixon in the past, and obviously him, whether being injured or not living up to expectation. But I believe like the second round is definitely a fair value, and I also like Carson. I definitely like Carson a lot because look, he's a workhorse running back. He really has no competition behind him. He's going to get the work, and we know that when they get closer to goal line, they go to Carson. So for me, those are the two guys that stand out to me on this list.
I love it. Last week we got, Victoria here talking about Joe Mixon's upside. We got you saying that you're targeting him in the second round. Yeah. You guys are finally turning. I love to see it.
Man, chill.
But Victoria, why don't you go ahead and answer the same question? Who are you targeting? A lot of people want to target wide receivers and tight ends here, and rightfully so. But for the sake of this question, let's talk running backs. Who are the running backs that you are targeting at that 2-3 turn?
Yeah, absolutely. Mixon's tough for me. I feel like when I get to this spot and I see Mixon's name, I have that recency bias. I still have that yucky feeling. So I've not taken too many shares of him here, but I'm definitely targeting Clyde, CEH here for that pass catching upside. I love me some Chris Carson, as you know, Dave. Who else on this list? James Robinson has gotten into the mix here. We don't know if he's going to have that 1,400-yard crazy season from last year, but he certainly has that workhorse role locked up now with Etienne's injury. I like him. I'm really the end of this list here. Josh Jacobs. Like, should we talk about him? Is he still someone you guys? Yeah, the face. Exactly. That's the exact face I feel like we all make when we get to that point. I cannot pull the trigger on him. And he might be fine this year for fantasy, but he's just not sexy. He's not exciting. So I think those would be the guys I'd be targeting. And certainly, I know DeAndre Swift is not on this list, but he is falling so far in drafts the last couple of weeks because of this groin injury news. I tweeted about it last week. I got some flack for it, but that's the information we know right now. But if he's falling into the 4th or even I've seen the 5th round, unbelievable value there for a pass catching running back. So Swift is another good target.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add. I think that you guys nailed it. What I'll do is rank these guys really quickly, and I think that the order that they're on right here is pretty close. I'd have Mixon as the top guy out of this list, Clyde Edwards-Helaire number 2, Chris Carson number 3, James Robinson, David Montgomery, and then Josh Jacobs. I don't think Josh Jacobs really deserves to be in this conversation. I think he's more of like a 5th, 6th round guy if he drops there, but I don't think that he really has the upside that these other guys do have. Well, anyway, that starts us off on the Mailbag Show, and we've got a lot to get to today, and we will get to all of that. I want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode. Just a reminder that you can send in all of your questions to mailbag@footballguys.com, so Troy, Victoria, and I can go over them for you. The show comes to you every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We start off by answering the submitted questions, and then we go to the chat. So start dropping those questions in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the show. Troy, why don't you let everybody know a little bit about our new partner, FanUp, and the contest that they're offering?
Of course. So y'all tired of the same old fantasy contest? Do you think you got what it takes to flex on the competition and possibly win this season's hottest fantasy football contest? $100, it doesn't get you a lot in fantasy football anymore. What if I told you that $100 entry, you can get entered into a grand prize of $225,000 and a VIP trip for 2 to the Super Bowl in LA with tons of weekly prizes? Well, it's FanUp's Flex Frenzy season-long contest. It's the perfect one for you, for all fans. It's super easy, it's quick, and there's no boring salary caps or anything like that. And all you have to do is sign up. The signups actually go through kickoff, so make sure you sign up now. Download the app that everyone's talking about. FanUp on the App Store for Apple. FanUp, just be fans.
Yeah, they got a great contest going there. Definitely recommend checking that out. But let's go ahead and continue digging into these questions a little bit. We got Kevin, FF Grinder, on Twitter asking us, how concerned are you with Jamar Chase? And Troy, you weren't here last week, but we got this question from a ton of people last week. We kind of talked a little bit about it. And then there was a game in between these two shows, and it started off with another Jamar Chase drop. So, Troy, start us off. How are you feeling about Jamar Chase?
I mean, I'm obviously not a fan of what I've seen preseason. Like it's preseason again. I don't want to overreact too much. I believe during the season he's going to be fine. He's going to get targets. He's not hopefully going to drop all the targets that's going his way. But I'll say that obviously it's not encouraging. We do have to remember that he's coming off an injury. He hasn't played football in a while, so maybe that's part of it. At the same time, a first round wide receiver, you would at least expect him to catch the ball. So I'm obviously, I would say I'm a tiny bit discouraged, but going into the season, I think you shouldn't avoid drafting him because of that. So I think you can draft him with confidence. You should be fine. He should be fine, but clearly nobody wants to see that many drops from an elite prospect during the preseason.
That's pretty much what we said last week. Victoria, do you have anything else you want to add to this? Are you, starting to get a little worried, or are you still just buying him on this dip?
I'm definitely starting to get a little worried. I think I said this last week. I never was taking him at that wide receiver 22, 23 ADP, but in drafts I'm doing recently, I'm seeing him go in that tier as far down as like Robbie Anderson, Will Fuller, Michael Gallup, Juju, Devonta Smith. I'd take a shot on him there, but I find myself in most drafts taking a higher upside guy there. I love Devonta Smith for this year. I think he can have that 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown season potentially, maybe the best rookie production. We might talk about that later, but I'm still unsure if I want to take Chase over those guys. I just think all Bengals ADPs are much too high right now for my liking.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing as like Pittsburgh right now. Like every single wide receiver there is getting drafted at their ceiling. Everybody has planted their flag saying that, Jamar Chase is going to be the guy, Higgins is going to be the guy, Boyd's going to be the guy. And because of that, it causes everybody to overdraft them a little bit. So I was kind of off Jamar Chase when he was going in that third, fourth round. But now with him dropping a little bit, I've gotten a little bit of exposure on him, and I think that he can bounce back. The drops are concerning, but it's like Troy alluded to, he didn't play football last year. So I think that he's just going to shake that rust off and be just fine. So if you can get him in the 5th, 6th, maybe in 7th round of your draft right now, congratulations, because, he's got all the makings to be an absolute stud this year. We got a question from Abe here at DFS_docket on Twitter, and he's saying, are you confident in your roster if Antonio Gibson is your RB1? Victoria, you've got to start off with this question. Are you confident if you draft Antonio Gibson as your number one guy?
I am, and I've done it before. So that's a vote of confidence from me. I think that you can get a little shaky, right? If he's your only RB and then you're waiting till a round where you're only taking a Chase Edmonds or something like that as your RB2. That would worry me a little bit. If you could pair him with someone like Najee at the turn, Eckler's going a little bit later, I've seen in the drafts I'm doing lately, or again, James Robinson or DeAndre Swift who are falling, I think that would make me feel a little bit more confident. But in general, I have all the confidence in the world in Gibson for this season. So yes.
Troy, what are you doing? Are you confident with Gibson as an RB1?
Absolutely. I mean, it's you don't need to overthink it. Gibson last year, he showed when he got more of the workload towards like the middle back half of the season that he's capable of producing those RB1 numbers or close to it. For me, I'm very confident having him, and his role's only expected to grow, right? We know that J.D. McKissick's targets last year, he's not going to get the same amount of targets from last year that he is this year. Hopefully we see that more going to Gibson, as well as he's going to be the back that they use on the goal line, right? And they just cut, Peyton Barber, which again, he wasn't very involved, but he could be annoying sometimes. But Gibson should get the goal line work. He's also going to get, again, most of the running back share anyway. So for me, I'm very confident in him as my RB1.
Yeah, so I think what Victoria said made a lot of sense too. That if you're going to get Gibson as your RB1, you kind of want to get another one of those high upside running backs. Like you said, you don't want to wait. Like if I get one of the top guys, if I'm getting McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Jones, Zeke, something like that, I'm okay waiting on wide receiver for the next few rounds. But if I'm drafting Antonio Gibson late first or early second, I'm going to want to pair him with some of the guys that we talked about earlier. Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson, something like that, and have a really strong duo. I wouldn't want to go into a league with Antonio Gibson as my RB1 and then a bunch of high upside guys that I'm hoping can pan out as an RB2. I'd kind of want to have a pretty good balance there. But yeah, I think that we all kind of agree here that Antonio Gibson is going to make just a fine RB1 this year. On to the next question. We got this one from Adam Koffler, who submitted this on Twitter. And he said the Chargers ran the most plays per game last season and Justin Herbert exploded. Can Trevor Lawrence do something similar as a rookie in Jacksonville? For reference, through the preseason, the Jaguars have run the third most offensive plays per game. So we might be looking at a similar kind of tempo to what we saw Justin Herbert succeed in last year. Troy, what do you think? Can Trevor Lawrence have this big breakout role like we saw last year with Herbert?
So I'll say that there's similarities, right? But the problem is that Justin Herbert pretty much set records, right? He's offensive rookie of the year. Like it's just a high expectations, right? So yes, Trevor Lawrence was the number one pick. So clear hoping that he can do something similar, right? But I believe that's almost, I want to say disrespectful to Justin Herbert, but he was special. He was special last year. We know that most rookie quarterbacks don't pull a Justin Herbert. So I would want to temper my expectations a bit. The pace of play, I'm not extremely excited about the Urban Meyer offense. I don't really trust him as a coach, from what we've seen. Mm-hmm. So again, I think that I'm excited about him because I think the team's going to be so bad and they're going to have to throw a lot. So I think that they're going to have to play catch up. So that's the reason I'm excited about Trevor Lawrence. And he's obviously talented, but I don't want to get too crazy and try to compare the two just because, again, what Justin Herbert did last year, it's not like every rookie QB is putting up those numbers and like setting those kind of records. So.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like people are asking who's this year's Justin Jefferson. There isn't one, and there probably isn't this year's Justin Herbert either. Like we got a little spoiled last year. But Victoria, what do you think? Can Trevor Lawrence do something similar and have this huge rookie breakout?
I'm in the same camp as Troy and probably you. I especially resonated when Troy said, we're not sure about Urban Meyer, right? He could go one way or the other. He's a spitfire. He clearly says exactly what he's thinking and feeling in any interview. But can he command this offense to some kind of greatness? I don't think so. I still think the Jags are going to struggle mightily this season. I get scared taking some of the pieces of the offense at ADP. I know like Laviska's going very high now after the awesome preseason performances we saw from him. But I do want to say, though, on the other hand, I think Trevor Lawrence gets a little bit lost in the shuffle for fantasy players, at least, because we're so stoked to see Justin Fields, take the helm away from Dalton or Trey Lance because he's an exciting prospect over there in San Fran. So I think Trevor Lawrence gets slighted a little bit. Maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder and he lights things on fire. We don't know.
Yeah, I think that you are very right, Victoria. People are just so excited and enamored by the other rookies that we forget that this guy was like just the unanimous 101, like the best prospect to come out since Andrew Luck. And yeah, I think that he is a huge value right now. I just did a draft and he's getting drafted in the 130s, which is just crazy to me that he's fallen that low. I think that he should be much, much higher than that. And you see him getting drafted right around the same time as Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And we don't even know when those guys are starting. Like we know that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the week one starter. I think that the fading of Trevor Lawrence is just a little bit of over analyzing. Maybe like we've just known how good this kid is for so long that we don't really want to just put him up there as the number one QB. Everyone's trying to be a little cute with it. So, can we see it? Is it in his range of outcomes that he can be this year's Justin Herbert? Absolutely. But we have to remember that Justin Herbert was an outlier and that shouldn't be expected, but it certainly is possible. We got a question here from Twitter, and it says, in a 10-team league with the 6th overall pick, who are you looking at and why? Who wants to take this question first? Who's done a draft lately and has this fresh in their mind?
I'll go.
Let's hear it, Troy. Who are you eyeballing at 6?
At 6, people who fell to me at 6, there's 2 people that I look at. Derrick Henry or Kelsey. Derrick Henry or Kelsey are realistic players that you can get around 6. And for me, it's I don't really have to make a case for either of them. Derrick Henry registering for 2,000 yards. Yes, we know he doesn't have a lot of PPR upside in terms of catching, but he doesn't need it. He's one of those outliers that's very successful without catching the ball. So again, I'll have to make too many cases for Derrick Henry. And Kelsey's not like other tight ends. There's a clear distance between him and I believe Waller was the tight end 2 last year. So for me, and also just he's better than a lot of wide receivers. So wait for you. If it's your standard tight 10 team league where you only have one tight end spot, having Kelsey there just gives you such an advantage over your other league mates. So those are the 2 players that I would be trying to look at around 6.
I like it. Victoria, who are you looking for here with the 6th pick?
I feel like we were talking about this the other day all together.
That's because I had the 6th pick in my home league, and we were talking about this. Yes, so
yeah.
I want to hear it.
I did too a couple of days ago in one of my home leagues, and when I was trying to do mock drafts and I was taking Kelsey at the 6th spot, I was building teams that I really, really didn't like by the end of it. So when I actually did the draft, I went running back here, and a lot of the times, guys like Jonathan Taylor, Zeke was there for me to choose. Aaron Jones, those types of running backs are still going to be there at 6 most likely, and those are probably the 3 running backs I would target there. I mean, you can realistically picking at 6 if you're going running back, you could get one of those studs, and then a couple with a Gibson or a Najee. Those would be the 2 running backs after that I would target as well if you're pulling from the 6th position, but. It was just every time I tried to build the team taking Kelsey as much as I wanted to, I disliked all of them, and I just ended up going RB.
I'm with you. I feel like, I've done a lot of mock drafts. I've done a lot of best ball drafts. And when you can get Kelsey late in the first and then still get, a solid guy early second, it works well. But if you're reaching for him at that 5-6 pick, it just usually doesn't work out by the end of the draft, like you said. So for me, what I went in, obviously if for some reason Zeke dropped to me, I would have been thrilled, but Zeke went in, prior to that. So I ended up with Aaron Jones, and I was happy with that. The 3 targets that I wanted at 6 were Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, or Saquon Barkley. And I would have been happy with any of those guys at 6, and Aaron Jones falling there. I think that, this guy's been a back-to-back top 5 running back in PPR leagues for consecutive seasons. And right now where he's getting drafted, he's almost, his floor is pretty much a top 10 RB at this point. And then he's got the ceiling to be the overall number 1 running back. So Aaron Jones is definitely the guy that I'm going for here. And then we've talked about this a lot on the show, but I just, for me personally, I don't like taking Kelsey in the first round when I know I can get Darren Waller in the second, George Kittle in the third. I feel like there isn't that big of a gap between those tight ends. And if you can wait a whole round or 2 to get one of them, that's kind of what I've been doing this year. We got another question from Twitter from Philly BOS, and I think we can run through this one real quickly. Who will the Eagles' top fantasy wide receiver be between Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, or Quez Watkins? Troy, who are you going with here?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of those things as a clean sweep. It goes Smith, Reagor, a bunch of random dudes, and then Watkins.
Yep. Victoria, are we in agreement on this one? Because that's where I'm standing.
Yeah, I'm
all right.
marking it. Yep.
All right. I'm guessing by the Twitter handle here that he's a Philly fan and he might be sipping that Kool-Aid a little bit, but Devonta Smith is the guy here. Exactly. It happens. He did, man. We saw it. We got another question from Spence on Twitter, and he's saying, what factors do you take in when differentiating between redraft and best ball? This is a great question because now we are turning from best ball season to redraft season. So who wants to start with this one?
Dave, you should start because you have probably done the most best ball drafts. By far. Even Troy and I combined probably don't hit the number that you've done.
Yeah, I think I'm at 300 now. But yes, well, I mean, in best ball, you want to chase upside. That's the biggest thing. I'm going for, I want nothing to do with Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Deshaun Jackson. I'm not eyeballing those guys in redraft, but I'm all over them in best ball. So I think you got to get those guys that are going to be boom and bust and volatile, and like the guys that you're typically saying like do not draft at all in redraft. Those guys do have a spot in best ball. Another thing is that you need to lock in 2 quarterbacks. So quarterbacks go a little bit higher in best ball than they do in redraft. And that was something that when I got into my redraft leagues, I wasn't really completely privy to and didn't realize that, where these guys are going in rounds 3, 4, 5, the elite tier of quarterbacks, those guys are dropping into the 6th, 7th, 8th round in redraft. So I think that's the biggest thing is you can wait on quarterbacks a little bit longer and you want to chase the guys that are going to have really high weekly upside rather than guys that can, just consistently produce week in and week out. Do you guys have anything to add to this? I know you guys have done a bit of best ball as well, or should we just move on to the next one?
I would say just to add to it, you just have to think about with redraft, you have to make a decision, right? Every single week, you have to make start-sit decisions. Best ball, you don't have to worry about that, right? It's like whoever scores the best, it is going to give you the points. And that's why, just like Dave's saying, you get to chase upside in that particular position. But when redraft, I think in some places, you got to think a little bit safer, right? You just can't just grab Joe Schmo, from any random team. You got to think about, okay, like realistically, is this player going to be able to contribute and start, earlier? And then again, you can't just take a random shot at the wide receiver 3, 4 on a team that you like. And
one other thing that I'll add is just by the player, like the positions that I draft are very different from best ball to redraft. In best ball, I'm usually okay walking out with 4 or 5 running backs, and then I'll have 8 or 9 receivers because those guys are going to have the higher weekly upside and they can hit on any given week. In redraft, I'm doing the complete opposite. I'm usually walking out with 3 to 4 wide receivers, and I am trying to hoard all the running backs, and I'll just stash them on my bench, not even worry about, but guys like Tyson Williams and AJ Dillon and these guys that probably won't have a huge role unless an injury pops up. My bench in redraft leagues is pretty much nothing but handcuff running backs that I'm hoping could pop off at some point, where I'm not really doing that as much in best ball. All right, we got another question here from Falcon Outboy, and he's saying, what is Kareem Hunt's ceiling considering Chubb plays all season? So assuming both guys play 17 games, what is Kareem Hunt's ceiling? Victoria, why don't you start us off with this one?
I think Nick Chubb played 11 or 12 games last season, if I'm not mistaken. 12, okay. And Kareem Hunt had roughly like 14 PPR points per game. So if Chubb's going to be playing all season, I don't see a high ceiling for Hunt, maybe 12 points per game. And I'm not targeting him. I think his ADP is a little bit too high for where I'd like to take him right now. I'd rather take a shot on a guy like Javonte Williams. I'm here for that upside if he becomes the RB1 in Denver and takes over Melvin Gordon's role. And it doesn't have to be right now, but they've been banging the drum all camp for Javonte Williams. They rested him for the final preseason game. I don't know if they were giving Melvin Gordon a little tryout to try and trade him there, showcase his talents. I'm not sure, but I'd rather take a shot at a guy like that, or even Trey Sermon a little bit later. Myles Gaskin is there. At least you still have that pass catching upside, and Gaskin is the starter. That might not be a great answer for everyone. Not everyone likes Gaskin there, but I'm not in on Hunt this year, especially knowing, he didn't go crazy nuclear when Chubb was out of the lineup last year. So that kind of cemented it for me.
He actually put up less points without Chubb. He was less efficient and didn't put up as many fantasy points when he had the role to himself. I think that they complement each other pretty well. But Troy, what do you think Kareem Hunt's ceiling is if Chubb plays the full year?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that in terms of everyone's expecting Kareem Hunt, if he had the whole role to himself, he's going to be a locked-in RB1. And he proved last year, the same offense that they have this year, same pieces around, that wasn't going to happen. And are we really going to expect anything different? And this question is if they both play. To me, his ceiling is going to be, I'd say, a mid-range running back 2. That's his ceiling, right? If they're both playing, because we know that Chubb's the RB1. Most likely Chubb's going to be getting the first opportunity at the goal line work. Yes, Kareem Hunt's going to get probably more targets, but at the end of the day, Chubb is still the guy. So to me, mid-range RB2, I believe, is going to be his ceiling if they both play all season.
Yeah, I think we saw his ceiling last year. And, for somebody that's seeing less than half of the team snaps as a running back, he was able to punch in 11 touchdowns last year. And he finished overall as the RB10. I don't expect that to happen again this year. We're going to see some negative regression on that touchdown total. That's going to drop down a little bit. And, I already mentioned that he was less effective when Chubb was out last year. So I think you hit it on the head, Troy. I think kind of a middling RB2 is what you could expect this year. Last year, that RB10 finish was really weighed by, like I said, 11 touchdowns, and I think that was his ceiling. I wouldn't expect that to happen again, and I don't think most people expect that to happen, and that's why his ADP isn't going in the top 2 rounds. But yeah, I think you're looking at like a middle and RB2 at best with Kareem Hunt this year. We got another question from Kevin on Twitter, and he's saying, do you think that Darrell Henderson and Gus Edwards can provide top 24 production weekly in PPR formats? I love this question. I've been struggling to rank these guys, but I think I finally found a pretty comfortable spot. Troy, start us off, man. How are you feeling about Darrell Henderson and Gus Edwards?
Okay, because first I wanted to make sure it was Gus Edwards and not Brian Edwards, but it makes sense. For
God, stop it with the Brian Edwards. Everybody stop it.
I'm we won't go on a tangent for that, but I believe both of them can. I mean, I don't see why not, but I believe that top 24, yes. I don't see any reason why both of them don't have that ability to do that, right? So, and yes, Sony Michel got traded to the LA Rams. And I know there's been talks about, he's going to take over the RB1 role. I'm sorry. I believe it's still Henderson's job. And as long as it's still Henderson's job, as long as it's the RB1, I think he's going to get the first opportunity at goal line work, first opportunity in terms of targets, and just being on the field more. So to me, and that offense should be, it was already high powered and should be even more efficient with Matt Stafford there. So I believe that Henderson, he got it. Gus Edwards, look, without J.K. Dobbins, are they going to mix in Justin Hill and Tyson Williams? They'll mix them in, but we even saw last year that they went to Gus Edwards more, it seemed like, than J.K. Dobbins on the goal line. So now, again, they're not going to go to Justice Hill more on the goal line. Gus Edwards is going to get the shot. Obviously Lamar's probably going to get, he's going to, steal some rushing work and maybe some touchdowns on the goal line. But I believe that Gus Edwards is going to get enough work that he should be able to also produce top 24 production on a weekly basis.
I like it. Victoria, what are you feeling about these guys?
I feel the same. I think I have them both ranked within my top 24 running backs right now. I think if I had to lean more toward one of them, it's Gus Edwards. And that's because I think he'll be more efficient with his touches. I think he'll get that goal line work, like Troy said, and he was spectacular last year. And with J.K. Dobbins, I believe that his ADP was too high where he was going pre-injury because he had Gus in the backfield that was going to take a large chunk of work from him. Now it's just Gus's role. I mean, Justice Hill, Tyson Williams, fine, but they're not going to take as much work as Gus would have from Dobbins. And in addition, the Ravens pass catchers are depleted. Who is even healthy right now? They just put Bateman on IR, I believe Boykin on IR.
Watkins.
So they have Sammy Watkins. That's great. Awesome. Mark Andrews and Gus Edwards are going to be busy for Lamar and that team. So, I mean, Gus is he could easily outperform his ADP. Henderson, I feel the same. He could do okay. I think that I'd be more worried here because he's not been that workhorse back, but if he gets the targets and he can stay healthy, I think he could be at least top 30, top 24 production on a weekly basis. For the first half of the season, probably. If Sony starts to mix in, it becomes this ugly running back by committee. I don't know. I don't see that happening, but it could very easily.
So I think that Gus Edwards is locked in as a top 24 guy. I think that he's going to be an RB2. He's got history on the team. He knows the team. Lamar's familiar with him. I think that Gus Edwards is going to just absolutely smash anyone that was doing early drafts and was able to get Gus Edwards in the 9th, 10th round. Congratulations, because I think he's going to be a bona fide RB2 with some RB1 weeks. I think that Gus Edwards is in a great situation. Darrell Henderson worries me a little bit more because they went out and they got Sony Michel, and that's a huge knock to Darrell Henderson. Everyone was so excited that Darrell Henderson was going to be the guy. And they went out and they got a guy in Sony Michel who has had 2 seasons with 200 plus carries. So this guy can handle a pretty heavy workload. And I worry that Sony Michel is going to take on that lead back role, and Henderson is going to be the same exact player that we saw last year, playing a change of pace, passing down role. And I think that really limits his upside. So I actually have Henderson after Michel came in. I pushed Henderson outside my top 30. I've got him ranked as RB 35 now. So I'm a little bit off him.
That's spicy.
I know, everybody still thinks that Darrell Henderson's going to be the guy, but they went out and traded for Sony Michel 2 weeks after Cam Akers got injured. That's got to show that they don't have complete faith in Darrell Henderson to take the job. So for me, Gus Edwards, lock for top 24. Henderson, he might have some weeks here and there, but Henderson is not a guy that I'm drafting as a top 24 running back anymore.
I have him currently ranked as running back 21, and I have Gus Edwards ranked at running back 16, just for context.
I like it. And I honestly, the reason I can't get higher on Gus Edwards is because of Tyson Williams. I've just been talking about this guy so much lately, but we all saw that one touchdown where he just was breaking tackles and extending and looked incredible. When I saw it at first, I thought it was J.K. Dobbins, if I'm being honest. And then I was like, wait, who is Tyson Williams? I had to look it up, but I watched some tape on this kid and he is really, really good. I don't think that Justice Hill is going to be too much of a thing, but don't be surprised if Tyson Williams ends up carving out a big role for himself in Baltimore this year. We got a question here from Colt Schroeder, and he is asking us, who is the best running back in the AFC East? I'm just going to sit this one out. We got a Bills fan, we got a Dolphins fan. I'll let you guys hash this out. Who is the best running back to grab there?
Josh Allen. Oh, the AFC East is gross for running backs. I think that I do love, as much as I love Gaskin for this year, I think Damian Harris has probably shot into a higher ADP here with Cam Newton being released. And right, Daddy's in the comments saying Harris. Yeah, I mean, if you think about how many goal line looks Cam Newton got last year, I think it was fourth most inside the 5 or something crazy. I was listening to the Ballers podcast earlier, or something like that. Those carries, not all of them, but majority are going to go to Harris. And that I still am leery knowing the Patriots and how they deploy the running backs. I still am leery for sure. So that's why I haven't ranked him any crazy jump with the Cam release. But I think I would go Harris here.
All right. Troy, are you going with your boy Gaskin or what are you thinking?
I'm going with the correct answer, which is Gaskin.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it.
Gaskin is the correct answer. So the reason why is, yes, Damian Harris obviously gets a bump because, Mac Jones is going to be the quarterback. The problem is, just like Victoria alluded to, they got other guys. Stevenson, we saw Stevenson in the preseason. He's going to get work, and who knows? He might be getting those goal line touches. Maybe it's not always going to be Harris. I'm not saying he's going to get all of them. He's going to work into that. But also, don't sleep on James White. James White in PPR leagues, he is going to be utilized. We've seen James White be very fantasy relevant with Tom Brady. Now we're seeing Mac Jones, who's also not a very mobile quarterback, who's going to need to dump off the ball. And on third downs, is it going to be Damian Harris? No, it's going to be James White. With Gaskin, he's probably the best pass catcher on the Dolphins. So he's not only going to be getting that the first and second down, but he's going to be there on third downs too, because again, he's a very good pass catcher. They do have Malcolm Brown, who might be the annoying vet who might vulture some TDs, but I like the fact that Gaskin, one, he's going to get the rushing opportunities, but he's also going to be getting the targets as well. Damian Harris, he's going to get a lot of rushes, but I believe the Patriots are going to be much more of a platoon than the Dolphins are. So because of that, I have Gaskin ranked 22, and I have Harris ranked 27.
Oh, that's pretty close to mine, but flip-flopped. I got Damian Harris as RB22, and I've got Myles Gaskin as RB25. So they are very, very close in ranking for me. But, I think this Patriots team is just going to run the ball a lot. And while I think that James White is still going to be involved, I think even Ramondre Stevenson is going to get some touches. I still think that Damian Harris, even if he is splitting touches, could still see 20-plus carries every single week. I think that he's that type of player. So I agree with everything you said, Troy. I think that Myles Gaskin has a sky-high ceiling because of his pass-catching ability. But if I'm drafting and those are the two guys on the board, I am taking Harris over Gaskin. But I agree with everything you said, and I do like Gaskin's ceiling. But I gotta plant a flag here, and I'm going with Damian Harris.
I think Pats ran the ball the third most in the league last season as well. So Something
and
to
then
note.
because they couldn't
and it,
throw. You saw
you know,
Cam.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. We
It's
know.
kind of crazy how much like everybody knew that Mac Jones was going to take over as the starter at some point in this season, right? So why does Damian Harris suddenly go from a 9th round pick to like a 4th or a 5th round pick? I mean, I thought he was an incredible value all offseason, and
Yeah.
now I feel like people are going a little bit too crazy. I saw him go in the 3rd round of a best ball draft yesterday. People are getting a little too crazy with the Damian Harris hype. I feel like people are. I don't really know what's happening with his ADP. I'm glad that I locked in my shares when I could in the 8th and 9th round, but yeah, Damian Harris, man, a lot of eyes are going to be on him because people are expecting big things from him this season. Next question we got is from Bradley Turns, and he's saying, how do you feel about having 2 players from the same team but not in a stack situation? So a couple examples, Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Tyreek Hill. So you're not stacking a wide receiver and his number 1 pass catcher. How do you guys feel about that?
Big
Victoria?
no for me. Big no. Unless you're stacking it with the quarterback and a pass catcher, I think this plan severely limits your ceiling of scoring weekly points, because if they're not in the quarterback wide receiver stack, only one of these guys, i.e. Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, only one of them can score at one time on one offensive drive. So that's limiting your potential output and points scored. I'm all for if you have, you take A.J. Brown in the beginning of your first couple of rounds, and then Ryan Tannehill falls to you kind of in that 10th or 11th, and the value is there, go for it. But I'm not actively also looking to stack that way and redraft if I'm not looking to force that as well. But this is a no for me.
What do you think, Troy?
Man, I strongly disagree with Victoria on this.
Woo! Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, I strongly disagree. It's not that something that I'm actively trying to do,
Sure.
but I don't mind doing it at all. Think of it. Last year, if I had A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry on my team, I'm not crying about it. I'm scoring fantasy points. If I had Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, guess what? My team was probably winning. I was just perfectly fine. You know what I'm saying? If I had, well, maybe Clyde, he didn't have that great year. But at the same time, for me, as long as I'm getting a very good wide receiver and a very good running back, I don't give a dang if they're on the same team, right? Because every single week, and for me, I actually kind of like it, right? I'm like, okay, if they're in the red zone, I'm like, okay, one of these 2 players is going to get me a fantasy point. I don't know who, but it's a good chance one of them is going to score. So I'm like, all right, it's teamwork. That's why I say it, teamwork on my fantasy team. One of y'all get me the fantasy points. So that's the way I approach it. So I don't mind it at all.
I think both of you make really strong arguments, but I'm going to lean a little bit towards Troy here. And I agree that if you just got 2 players that are scoring a lot of points, it doesn't really matter if they're on the same team. I think one thing that I actively do try to avoid doing, and it's not any of these examples here, but I don't like getting multiple pass catchers on the same team. I just did this in a draft the other day and didn't even realize it at the time, but I had George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. And I'm just like, well, this is a run first team. I got 2 pass catching options. One of them is probably going to, poop the bed every single week. And, so you got to deal with that. So that's what I try to do is like actively avoid getting 2 wide receivers on the same thing. But I think if you're getting a running back and a wide receiver, like Troy said, if you got A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, that the majority of the touchdowns of the Tennessee Titans are going to score that year are going to come from one of those 2 guys. So I don't mind doing this all that much. But I think you both made very, very good arguments there. We got another question from Chris Burkle, and he's saying in a dynasty trade that he just made, he gave up Etienne, which was his 4th overall pick, Leonard Fournette, and Sam Darnold for Tua, Marquez Callaway, and next year's 2nd-round pick. So a lot to process here, but how are you feeling about this? Troy, I see you smirking. We're talking about your Dolphins a little bit. How do you feel about this one?
I just don't. Do we know if it's a super flex or 1 QB? And I think I don't know if it matters too much, but
let's assume super flex since it's a dynasty league. Let's just assume super flex for the sake of conversation.
I would say I don't really like any side. But this is if I'm honest, I think that I like the Tua side. I think I like the Tua side. Not being a homer, but for me, Sam Darnold might not be in the QB next year. If Tua has a good year this year, as long as he doesn't completely suck, he's going to be the QB for the Dolphins. Fournette, he's an older running back. He could get cut next year. And there was rumors that he was going to get cut this year, right? And then Etienne, he's obviously going to be the running back for the Jags. So, But the second round pick is kind of what did it for me. Malcolm Callaway, he had a good preseason. I don't know his long term, but Tua to me is what is the difference maker in this trade.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm taking the Tua side. I'm with you as well. What are you thinking, Victoria? We got 3 on this.
Yes, Callaway wide receiver 1. Let's go. Just kidding, but yeah, I'm definitely on that. Who knows where Fournette's going to be next year? Who knows if Darnold's going to have a job next year? Give me the Tua side easily.
Yeah, I am completely with you. All right, we got time for one more question. We're going to answer this one right now, and then we will go to the chat. So we already saw some really good questions come through there. But if you got any other questions that you want us to answer, drop in the chat right now, and we will get to them immediately after this question from Zachary Sandecki. He's saying, keep 3, Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, J.K. Dobbins. I'm guessing this question was submitted earlier in the week. We'll take J.K. Dobbins out of that equation, but who are you keeping out of this bunch? Pick 3. Victoria, who you got?
Barkley, Hill, and Jefferson because of the news. It's tough with Ridley and Jefferson. I have Ridley ranked higher, but Jefferson could see 130 targets.
What news are you talking about, Victoria?
I
what
apologize.
The audience know?
Yes, the news today that Irv Smith is out, tight end for the Vikings, is out for the rest of the season with a meniscus injury. And that offense is now going to flow through Cook, Thielen, and Jefferson again, just like last year. Look what Jefferson did last year. I want to say he can only get better, right? Can he? We don't know, but at least we know he can put up that production. So I'm going with Jefferson there for that last.
You're not worried about Chris Herndon?
Chris Herndon's season started and ended yesterday for me personally. After I read the tweet, it started, and then when I was done reading the tweet, it ended. Please, everyone stop with Chris Herndon and also Bryan Edwards. I'll happy to be wrong on Bryan Edwards, though.
I'll be happy to be wrong on Bryan Edwards, too. I'll be honest.
He's not going to the moon. He's going maybe to Wendy's, as I've mentioned many times. But
I'm not that hard. Okay.
Troy, who are you keeping out of this? And then we'll get to the chat.
Barkley, Hill, Ridley. Look, Ridley has a chance to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Hill has a chance to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Jefferson, you made a good argument about Jefferson, but with Thielen there, I don't see him having that ability to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Barkley's Barkley, so that's why I'm going Ridley, Hill, Barkley.
I am going exactly with what you said, Troy. It's tough choosing between Calvin Ridley and Justin Jefferson. You're really splitting hairs at that point and just kind of picking on your personal preference. But like you said, I don't think that he has overall wide receiver 1 potential. You can certainly see an increase in touchdowns because, it was laughable how little he scored last year. So I think that we can see a boost in that number. But Calvin Ridley, this dude was averaging 110 yards per game without Julio Jones last year. He is going to eat in Atlanta. Wouldn't surprise me if this guy is seeing 12 to 13 targets every single week. I think that he is just as likely to finish as the overall wide receiver 1 as anybody is. So, yeah, I'm going with Saquon, Tyreek Hill, and Calvin Ridley here. Troy, I'm going to start combing through this chat a little bit and find some good questions. While I'm doing that, let everybody know about the email update that we offer at Footballguys.
Absolutely. So you need to sign up for the Footballguys daily email update. If you aren't already, every day Joe Bryant will bring you the latest news from Footballguys, the latest news, transactions, rumors, all the articles and shows from Footballguys staff. So make sure you sign up for that email update.
Thank you very much, Troy. And we got a great question here from Tom Ashton that we're going to start with, submitted over on YouTube. And he's asking, in a keeper league, rank DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb as wide receivers that you can keep forever with no penalties. So we're kind of just dynasty rankings here at this point. DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. This is a tough one. Who wants to start with it?
I'll go. I'm going to go surprising. It's actually kind of surprises me, but I'll go Lamb, Jefferson, Metcalf.
Whoa!
Yes, let's go.
It was tough, but yeah, it was tough.
I like that.
I think I like that. I think I like that.
I'm going to disagree pretty hard with that. I'm going Justin Jefferson. I mean, this dude just ran 1,400 yards as a rookie. Like, I think
I say he's my number 2. Damn.
Yeah. So he's. I mean, like, this is a tough question. This is a really tough question. These are 3 great young wide receivers, but I'm going Justin Jefferson number 1, DK Metcalf number 2, and then CeeDee Lamb number 3. And that's not a knock on CeeDee Lamb. Like, CeeDee Lamb's a great wide receiver, but that's a tough group to split up right there. Victoria, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the opposite. Jefferson, Lamb, Metcalf. So we all had different answers. Tom, I apologize for not.
I have a question for Dave though.
Oh, okay.
So let's say that next year, let's say Amari Cooper moves on, right? Let's say he's not on the team, and CeeDee Lamb's the number 1 wide receiver. Are you still keeping those rankings?
No. I mean, if CeeDee Lamb was guaranteed the wide receiver 1 position, I mean, my reason for being a little bit off CeeDee Lamb is because of Amari Cooper. I think this is still Amari Cooper's team. I think Amari Cooper is the wide receiver 1 there. So I think looking at like a pure talent standpoint, CeeDee Lamb might be the best here. And I know that that's how you're kind of supposed to rank when you're looking at Dynasty. But his situation in Dallas with that many pass catchers does worry me. And he's going to be there for the next few years. I don't think that they're going to let Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper walk next season. They're going to re-sign one of those guys and bring them back. So, as much as I like CeeDee Lamb, I feel like Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen's already 32 years old. He's only getting older from here on out. I mean, Justin Jefferson could be in a role where he's seeing 150, 160 targets as soon as next year. And then Metcalf is just, he's DK Metcalf. It's pretty tough to bet against him, but that's a tough question. That is a really tough question. All right, this one might be a little bit easier, might be a little bit tougher. We got Avi asking us, Adam Thielen or DJ Moore? Let's assume this is redraft. It is redraft season. You're on the clock. Adam Thielen and DJ Moore. Who are you picking? Victoria.
Thielen.
Oh.
And I wouldn't do that until, again, this Irv Smith news. We're all worried about Thielen's touchdown regression. He scored a plethora of touchdowns last year. Not very many yards per game, right? That's the worry. That's why his ADP was dropping a little bit. But now with the news of him, it's Thielen, Cook, and Jefferson, and I think he could do the same thing again. He's going to be another red zone target for Kirk again this season. And DJ Moore, maybe I got a little bit of recency bias. I've been waiting for him to break out. And I'm not saying he is a talented player. There's just a lot of people in that room. CMC, now with Terrace Marshall, new rookie coming in, Robbie Anderson. There's a lot of people. Dan Arnold, let's go.
Oh,
he's tight end. He's got a lot of competition, so I'm going Thielen here. I'm sure you guys disagree, but that's fine, man. Okay.
I do. And I got my reasons for it, but let's hear Troy's reason. Who are you going with here, Troy?
I'm surprisingly going to agree with Victoria on this one.
What? Okay.
I'm agreeing with. So to talk about Adam Thielen, right? So last year, yes, we know about the TDs, but most of Adam Thielen's career was flip-flop. It was like he was getting a bunch of receptions and yards, but he wasn't getting touchdowns. And last year, he finally got touchdowns, and everybody mad about it. Like, oh, no, that's not sustainable, right? So for Thielen, and obviously Irv Smith not being there, as one, he didn't have a lot of upside anyway in terms of the tight end position, but he was still a viable, weapon in the red zone. So to me, I think this just benefits Thielen. I think I'm on the board. I like DJ Moore, but again, Anderson and Terrace Marshall and CMC. We're forgetting the CMC is going to be back stealing a lot of receptions. That's a huge knock to me on DJ Moore. Again, DJ Moore is extremely talented, but the problem is just I'm not trying to say that too many mouths to feed because I don't like that argument, but obviously CMC is going to command a lot of targets, and because he just has viable other options on the team with Robbie Anderson and Marshall. With Thielen, it's really only him and Jefferson, right? There's no wide receiver 3 on the team. So that's why I'm leaning towards Thielen.
And see, I feel like this is a great question when we talk about regression a little bit. I think that, we're going to look at some negative touchdown regression for Adam Thielen and some positive touchdown regression for DJ Moore. Adam Thielen wasn't even able to crack 1,000 yards last year. If he didn't haul in 14 touchdowns, nobody would be rating him where they are in fantasy football. I think that this was really kind of bolstered by a heavy touchdown season. On the flip side, we're kind of fading DJ Moore because he didn't catch touchdowns last year, but he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I think that DJ Moore is going to be just fine.
Okay, but DJ Moore scored 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns the last 3 seasons. Is he just not a touchdown guy? Can we can't say that yet, right? We're still hoping for it, but I need to see those touchdowns, honey.
I mean, it's certainly possible that he's just not a touchdown guy, but I've never seen anybody that consistently averages 1,000 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, and that's pretty much what his average has been since coming into the league. I just don't think that that's something that. Oh, come on. Yeah, Julio he did that. Yeah, you are right. But even that, Julio was still averaging like 6 to 8 touchdowns a year. And he just wasn't hitting overall wide receiver 1 potential, but he was still scoring touchdowns. DJ Moore has been quite the outlier as far as production to touchdowns. So I'm going DJ Moore here. If I'm being totally honest, I'm lower than the consensus on both of these guys, but I do have DJ Moore just a couple spots ahead of Adam Thielen. So we got somebody here needs help, all capitals. So let's help this man out. Who should I start week 1? Raheem Mostert versus the Lions or David Montgomery versus the Rams? So this is a good question. I know where I'm going. Troy, start us off. Who are you doing? Mostert or Montgomery?
I know where Dave's going. I think I know where Victoria's going. It's Montgomery. And it's solidified also with Tariq Cohen. He's going to be on IR or either the PUP list or one of those designations. But to me, Montgomery, he's again Raheem Mostert. Is he the RB1 in San Francisco? Yeah, but again, we already know how San Francisco operates. It's not just the running backs. It's Debo. It's Brandon Ayuk. It's George Kittle. Like it's just they're very creative, but the problem is it's not very reliable in terms of predicting. In terms of Chicago, then let's say whether it's Andy Dalton or it's Justin Fields. I think they're going to be relying heavily on David Montgomery. And yes, the Rams defense is tougher, but give me the opportunity and the volume. So I'm going to Montgomery.
All right. Troy thinks that he knows us. Let's see, Victoria. Are you gonna give the Troy the answer that Troy expects, or are you gonna throw him off here? Who are you going with?
He gave a compelling argument because I saw this and I was like, oh, Lions easy, right? I don't know. And how many weeks are we going to be able to start Mostert? Not sure. So, right, like he might get hurt. Sermon might come out and light the world on fire. But Troy, you do make a compelling argument here. I think maybe for that volume, that volume will be there for Montgomery. You worry about how they're going to utilize Mostert, right? I think maybe I do. Troy changed my mind to lean Montgomery, although the Lions defense is bad. So if they're up and they're throwing and the Lions are down by a lot of points, they could just be running Mostert and getting those garbage time points as well. So this is tough. I don't know. I think I'll go Montgomery against my better judgment. Troy kind of convinced me. Do
you know why David Montgomery did so well last year? It's because he got to play the Lions twice. They should be wearing the cheese heads in their crowd because that defense is Swiss cheese. They're going to get carved up. I'm going Mostert here. And then obviously, if I'm looking purely at a draft, I'm taking Montgomery ahead of Mostert. But looking at those matchups, I mean, the Rams are going to be, we know the Rams have one of the most, the stoutest defenses in the league. You already talked about Andy Dalton's going to be the week 1 starter. This isn't going to be some high-powered, explosive offense. So while he might get a lot of volume, I really like Raheem Mostert's, Raheem Mostert can take an 80-yard touchdown to the house anytime, like any given week, and he can easily do it against his Lions team. I just think that Raheem Mostert will be able to put up more fantasy points on half the amount of volume than David Montgomery will against this Rams team. So I'm leaning Mostert in this situation. Maybe I'm overthinking the matchup a little bit, but the Rams scare me, and the Lions are a team that I love to start running backs against. Had another question. Here it is. Next question. What do you guys think of waiting on a wide receiver until after the 4th round? So this is not full-blown 0 wide receiver, but, a little bit. How do you guys feel about this?
So I guess you're going, let's say, 2 running backs, a tight end, a quarterback, and then you're going receiver? I can work. I don't mind it. You're just going to have to pretty much go receiver most of the rest of the draft, which it could work out because receiver, you have the most depth at the position. So I don't think it's that crazy of a strategy. I've done similar strategies. Normally, if I'm going like running back or go tight end early, I don't take like a quarterback early as well. I'll either go like 2 running backs and a quarterback early, or like 2 running backs and a tight end early. So again, it's not a crazy strategy. You're just gonna have to really hit on all those guys, but it's possible because there are some good receivers that are going after the 4th round. So I don't mind the strategy.
Yeah. I mean, last year, 50% of the wide receiver ones came in the 5th round or later. I mean, it's just, it's crazy how deep the wide receiver position is nowadays. So I agree with you. I like doing it. I'd even go as far as if it's a 2 wide receiver league where you're starting 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, I'll even go running back, tight end, running back, running back. I'll head into the 5th round with 3 running backs occasionally. But Victoria, what do you think?
No, you guys hit it on the head. I agree with you there. Because there are guys like Corey Davis, Devontae Smith that you can grab later in the 5th, and they might be the wide receiver ones in their team and get plenty of volume. So
exactly. We got a question here, and this is one that I can empathize with. He's saying, love your content. Thank you for that. But he's saying, what's your strategy? I'm new to Superflex. I'll start off with this one really quickly. Don't make the same mistake that I did and wait on quarterbacks. Quarterbacks dry up quickly in Superflex. The first time I did a Superflex startup, I left with Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Mitch Trubisky as my quarterbacks. You do not want to be in that position, I promise you. So, it sounds crazy when you're sitting there in the 1st round and thinking about taking a running back or a quarterback over a stud running back. Like why would I take Joe Burrow when, Joe Mixon is still on the board? But that's what you've got to do. Don't fall trap and wait on a quarterback. You need to have, in my opinion, you should be taking 2 quarterbacks in your first 3 picks. Troy, I know you do a lot of Superflex leagues. What would be your advice to somebody that's new to Superflex?
I'll do the same thing, but also you have to remember that they're in the draft is the cheapest that you're going to be able to get a quarterback, and nobody's going to trade you, right? Unless it's a premium. After it's really impossible to trade quarterbacks. So again, in Superflex leagues, me personally, I always go QB 1st round. If I have like a decent pick, right? Or like latest 2nd. But I try to at least have 2 QBs, like kind of like Dave, within the first 3 rounds. Sometimes I might slip to 4, but it gets ugly. And because those QB runs are death sentences if you're at the end of that QB run. So make sure you get your quarterbacks in Superflex because, man. And again, like some people think they're overrated. No, to me, quarterbacks, and also and just like Dave mentioned, he got Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. Like, for me, it's fine if you want to get like an okay guy as your 2nd QB, but I want a stud 1st QB. That's another thing that I like to do. Stud 1st QB, and then all right, 2nd one I might be a little bit more flexible.
Well, we are running out of time, but I feel like I'd be in the doghouse if I didn't pull this question up real quickly. My wife, Emily, has the pick 7 in her home league draft tomorrow, and she is tilting. Real quickly, before we wrap this up, Victoria, who are you looking to pick at 7? I know we already had the conversation about 6. Can't imagine it's too different. Who are you taking at 7?
We did, yeah. At 7, again, if somebody like Zeke falls that far, Aaron Jones, those are the guys that I'm targeting around that 7th pick there.
Troy, same thing. You're hoping for Kelsey there, right? All right, cool. Best of luck, Emily. I'll be in the other room if you need any help.
Good luck, Em.
But want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Mailbag Show. The show is just so fun. Like I seriously look forward to this every single week. You guys are awesome. Victoria, Troy, thanks a lot. But before we sign off, I want to let everybody know that you have just about a week left to get your chance to enter the $35,000 subscriber contest. That's right. Literally, all you have to do is have a Footballguys membership. If you're a subscriber, you get a free entry into this. We will have the link down in the YouTube video. I'll edit it in there as soon as we are done recording. But it is a salary cap lineup. There's no draft. All you do is you go in and you pick the players that you want. You could have as few as 18 players. You could have as many as 30. But it is full best ball. You don't have to worry about in-season management. You just pick the players right now, sometime between now and Wednesday. Set that roster. Don't touch it for the rest of the season. The top 100 people in this pool get a free premium subscription to Footballguys for next year. And then the top 10 people get cash prizes, with the overall winner getting $35,000. So be sure to sign up for this. I built my team today, and it was a blast to work through. So thanks again for tuning in to the Football Guys' newest show, the Mailbag Show. I'm Dave here with Troy and Victoria, and you can find us live every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to subscribe to the Football Guys YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguystv. You can find all the rest of the shows that Football Guys has to offer. Be sure to send your questions into mailbag@footballguys.com, and we will see you next week.